Welcome to another episode of How'd You Do That? You have many example templates in your Canvas course in the module for the VG2-540 ROLAND vinyl cutter printer. I chose to bring out a 1.5 by 5.5 template that I created for you, and you'll see that there's going to be a magenta line just like your bumper sticker. The outside, which is basically the whole white part, is your artboard. That's kind of like your literal canvas, what the vinyl is going to be printed on. So you did have some excess when you peeled your bumper sticker off. This is the excess vinyl. You don't have to stick with a 1.5 by 5.5 area. This is obviously, I gave everybody a circle, I gave everybody a square. The square and the rectangle are going to be very easily manipulated. Since everything's in Canvas, don't feel bad about accidentally messing this up and having to create a new one. So what we can do is change the artboard size. I'm going to steer my attention towards one of the finest teachers at Grafton High School, Mrs. Brenda Stilo. She had asked for some labels for bags, all the soups that, the delicious soups that she makes, the directions for those types of items can simply be used for this purpose. The artboard is next to our little zoom here. It looks kind of like a little corner folded pieces of paper with a little plus sign in the corner. If I single left click on that, you can see that the artboard is now highlighted. And the current size of the artboard, because the magenta was the 5.5 by 1.5, the artboard is 6 by 2. If Mrs. Stilo would like to change that to a different label that you would like, or if you would like to do this. Now remember, this printer is 54 inches wide. If you were to do a big wall flare like you see, we do have wall flare material, and unfortunately seems to not stick well in the humidity. We have done things like that for individuals in the community and in the high school and the district, but there's many different materials that can go through here: glossy vinyl, matte vinyl. But regardless, if Mrs. Stilo wanted to do a small recipe label or direction label, what she could do is, instead of a width of 6, maybe she doesn't want to wrap that far around a container, and she wants to maybe make it 5. Now the link next to it, I could maintain some proportions to that, but maybe I don't want to. Maybe I want to change this to 10 high, and then I can hit the enter key. So there's my artboard. Now to zoom, unfortunately, the only way to zoom on something like this is hit your control key and hit the minus sign. If you wanted to zoom up, hit the control or hold the control key and hit the plus sign. Here's my artboard. Now most of our software does have the pick tool, so we're going to go up to the selection tool or our pick tool. So if you don't know the exact size, it's not a bad thing to tinker around with it. Have a tape measure or a ruler next to you to kind of measure your component to find out exactly what you're looking for. The actual swatch, the part that I would really like to make sure that I have designed within the artboard, maybe instead of 1, maybe you want to do 2 of them. So if I decide that I want to design this, now I have to be aware of what my artboard is, and if I forget, I can always go back to the artboard and go, oh, it was 5 inches wide. Maybe I could do the swatch here, the magenta swatch, the pink swatch. Maybe I could do it at 4.5 and single left click on it and hit the width at 4.5 and select my enter key. So there's my 4.5 swatch. If you do jiggle it around, it will automatically line up and down. Now, what Mrs. Stilo or anybody else that loves these delicious labels could do, now this, I don't know how much we're going to fit into a 1.5 area. So maybe we want to make it a little taller, maybe on, like I said, it could be a bottle, it could be a container, maybe the width, I'm sorry, I apologize, the height, let's try 6, see what 6 does, and we can hit enter. Now, if this is too much of an area, maybe I could shrink the artboard down. Maybe I'll shrink it down to 7. So you can toggle between these designs. So I'm going to go back to 7. Surprisingly, that's about the size of a picture, a 5 by 7, and I totally forgot to hit the enter key. So back to the artboard, we'll go 7, and we'll hit the enter key, and there we are. I'm going to select my swatch and wiggle it back around so we can get that center. So it's vertical, and there's the horizontal. Okay. So I'm losing out a little bit on the top and bottom. Maybe I do want to make my swatch a little larger and go 6.5. And then, in fact, I will have that 1/4 inch. Don't forget to hit the enter key. And there we are. So now that we have our set size, so I had my tape measure, I had my ruler, I know exactly what I want to do, and now I want to put some text in. Now, maybe if Mrs. Stilo or somebody else, and I'm going to hit Control Plus, wants to put some, I apologize, I had a command open, so I had to left click in the screen and then hit my Control Plus, Control Minus to make it bigger. Anyway, let's say the title of the recipe that Mrs. Stilo had her kids do couldn't be a name, but it had to be a picture. It had to be a picture of what they were creating. Now, because this is a nonprofit and we are not, we still want to be very weary of copyright laws. Maybe somebody like Mrs. Kunick could do the same thing, where she could, instead of having a letter or a poem or a quote that the students come up with, instead of a title, they have a picture. So you could look on the internet. I wouldn't be able to really tell you exactly where to start with drawing a picture on here, except having this little curvature tool and going, well, I don't know if I'm really drawing a little, stick person, correct. I wouldn't have a clue on, how this would be, and the adjustments of it, and so on and so forth. So drawing on here is from scratch would take students probably a significant amount of time. So we might have to go to the internet and find something. Now we could go to Google, and we could go to images, and we could type in how about seasonal things that are coming up. Harvest dishes. I think that would be a fun. Okay, now we're talking about plates and things, so you can see where the translation could. There we go. Food could get lost in here. Look at that. So maybe the students would have to create a harvest salad or something that revolves around the season. And they can kind of scroll around. I'm not finding anything readily here, but let's just pick this one here. I don't know if that's some big fat pieces of beef jerky that are back there. I don't know how healthy that is, but we're going to copy this image, and we're going to hit Control V for pasting. Control V as in very delicious. Now you could use the corner to corner, and typically with most software it would be proportionate. Unfortunately with AI, Adobe Illustrator, it does skew. I'm going to hit Control Z twice to bring it back to where it was. That's a little faded on the back side, but for our example I think we're going to be okay. You can adjust the image size because it's selected with my selection tool. I can come up here. This time I do want to link. I want to maintain width and height proportions. And I'm going to shrink that down. I'm going to go 2 inches and just see what it looks like, and then hit the Enter key. Still looks good even though it's small. Maybe I want to do a side offset kind of thing. So now that I have my image, maybe I want to put some text in there. Now the picture, remember, for this lesson is supposed to be, just as an example, is supposed to be the title. So we can't really word the title when it's supposed to be the picture. So we're going to go to the text now. Click, hold, and drag text box. And there is some gibberish that pops up. It's just one of those things with Adobe Illustrator. Once you drag a text box, a bunch of random kind of nothing pops up, just to kind of give you a feel of what the text font is, the size, and so on. So I'm just going to start typing ingredients. I'm going to hit the Enter key twice, and I'm going to type in 4 pieces of beef jerky, and hit the Enter key, and 3 cups of kale, if that's what that is, or maybe it's Popeye's spinach next to its beef jerky, and 2 cups rice, and I'm not sure what that back left stuff is. I don't know how to spell goulash. I don't know if there's a spell check in Adobe Illustrator. We'll just put 1 cup pasta. And there we are. Now, the nice thing is, if I go to my selection tool, the boxes pop up again, and I can track off of the height and make these even. So I got a real nice even what is going to be a label. Now, if I double click on here, I can continue add my ingredients and so on, and put it in a bowl that's this deep or this size or what have you. But I'm going to change maybe the character font. Instead of having the Myriad Pro, I can find something, and you don't want to make it too difficult. And I'm sure you folks know this as teachers, too difficult to read. I'm just going to go with the Rockwell Extra Bold. Nice. And that. Now the other thing is, because this is such a cool color printer with the vinyl, if you don't like the straight black all the time, kind of like the home bumper sticker, you have different things to choose from. Now, if you want to choose more of a harvest color for your project, you could do that. And obviously, there's other things that you can do with text. The nice thing is also, if you know other software, if you know how to manipulate something like Publisher or PowerPoint a little better with shading letters and so on, you can always copy and paste that stuff and bring it into Adobe Illustrator. So this is just the basics on how to manipulate the artboard and add a picture and put some text in there and so on. And then if you needed to, you can, instead of reinventing the wheel, because you want to keep this same format with the Rockwell and the extra bold and the type of colors, so you're not digging around the next day trying to find out exactly how you did it, because you need to put the directions on how to manufacture this beautiful piece of artwork / edible lunch. You can copy and paste. Now, the way to do that is if you're in your pick tool and you select the text box or the image or anything else that you're putting in there, and you hit Control C, and then you hit Control V. this case, it offsets it. It doesn't overlay it right on top. And I'm going to track it right down the pipe of this one, and I'm going to drag it over that one. And then maybe for this particular one, I want to change the font size to maybe a little bit larger for the directions. And then I can just start typing in directions and grab. I know that's probably not a technical term in the family and consumer science courses, but grab a 1-quart bowl. Because it also is an art form. Okay? And so on and so forth. So this is just one example on what you could do. Open up maybe some of the other templates, manipulate diameter sizes on the circle one, save it to your Google Drive and so on, so you'll always have it when you come to this computer for Adobe Illustrator. If there's other Adobe Illustrator computers in the school or other computers that have it, feel free to use those, or you're going to just have to use this one. So I'm going to stop sharing just for a second, but you will have to see how to convert this and get it into the VersaWorks and a little bit more explanation we have there. Now that you have your design done, remember it's going to be vinyl, it's going to be in this beautiful form, and it is going to stick to something after you peel it around the magenta edges. I know another good use for this particular machine is to label cabinets. Science department, oh my gosh, you have a ton of materials. Kevin Gain, you have a ton of materials, and you need to start labeling some of these cabinets. You know, Mike Dodge, he did a great job with labeling every fastener type that he has in his shop in a large cabinet. It looks beautiful. Organization is the key to efficiency. I just thought of that. File, save as. In this case, I'm going to save it to the desktop. And I'm going to save it as maybe template, not what I have here, but I'm going to save it as recipe and save and OK. Now we also, because our machine, the VG2-540 ROLAND vinyl printer cutter, likes PDF files. File, save as, drop down to PDF. To the desktop, save. Save PDF. I'm going to minimize this. Now this is where the VersaWorks comes in. Here's my PDF of my recipe right here. The VersaWorks is what our ROLAND recognizes as its printer software. I'm going to double click my left mouse button and open that up. Now our ink levels are unfortunately a little low. I didn't want to leave out our lovely Ms. Minty because these are the Falcon for John Long Middle School in our home project. So I just thought I'd throw in there real quick, and I did do it in AI. I did trace everything, you know, from the first video that these are low quality images, but I did get it to create a very nice high quality image in Adobe Illustrator. So I'm sure Mr. Deering also will be enjoying that. We can paste those all over windows and whatnot. We're going to click on that one and not so much trash it, but just get rid of it out of our VersaWorks. So if there is something else in here, definitely get rid of it. So I was kind of glad that was in there. We want to now minimize this, and from our first video, you can call. So this is Ms. Stilo's recipe now. If I left click on this and drag it in here to our job status, and there it is. I'm going to maximize this. Now you can go through, remember, the settings. Now I could manipulate this by turning it, but remember that one of the first things we want to do is get media width, and it will automatically recognize how I loaded the roll. We're real close to the 54, but obviously I have the pinchers, the guides in a little closer. The scale, we're going to keep the scale 100%, because when you took the time to take a tape measure or a ruler and measure that place that you wanted this, whether it be a can or a container or a box or a cabinet door, and you go, this is what I want, this is what you're going to get, keep the scale at that. Definitely don't ever hit fit to media size, because that would just crank it up to the full 54, and all of a sudden you got a door hanger. Definitely hit center on media. Now, the next thing we want to do is determine the amount of copies. To not waste material, we want to fill up this whole roll that is 52.68. So we are going to first hit, and you can always go back and change it. I mean, you could crank it up all the way, you know, and fill up sheets as many as you feel are necessary. But just for it as an example, if I'm going to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them out of there, and I'm going to have a little teeny tiny gap over here and over here, maybe I could orientate them differently. So I'm going to select upright, and I'm going to maybe crank in. Ooh, that's even closer. So now I can get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of them. Even though it might be a little longer this way, I'm saving material left and right. So maybe that's the way I want to go. The rest of these, remember the quality, the type of material should automatically be selected. I change this setting every single time I change a roll in the VG2. We don't need to worry about anything when it comes to the colors and so on. All this is just not even necessary. It's one of those more rare occasions that you would be using any of these settings. You do, however, in printer controls, cut sheet after output. The last thing we want to do is try to get a scissors across here. Speaking of scissors, the cut controls. The cut image boundaries, just as a review, are what we call, once again, the marching ants. The perform perforated cut for image boundaries, left click on that, and these really, it's just a matter of how long you would like the perforation. Why the default is 0.787 is beyond me. It could be, remember I had to change it to 2 inches for the bumper sticker, basically saying the cut for the bumper sticker is going to be 2 inches long. And our at this point in time, as I'm creating this screencastify, the knife that does the cutting is starting to get dull, and obviously some of the items that were coming out weren't perforating or punching out, and that's why I cranked up the gravity force of 200, which is basically just stating the weight of the actual cutter on top of the material. Obviously, the thicker the material, the more that you have to enter the force. The half-cut force is, excuse me, just when it jumps up over your actual perforate, or not the perforation, but the tab that's hanging on. So we're going to skip the actual settings here because I'm not actually going to print this. Anything else underneath really is null and void when it comes to your basic printing cutting. So once we get to OK, not that I'm going to print this, but you would then hit the print, and the machine automatically, it's always turned on, it cycles through its own self-maintenance, and we would be able to then hit the print. This is the first time our ink levels ever showed warnings, so if they do end up running out, please let myself or Mr. Dodge know.